Ambassador HFY adjusted his breathing apparatus as he stepped onto the gleaming deck of the Galactic Council station. His 4 eyes scanned the massive chamber where representatives from 300 different species gathered in their designated atmospheric zones. The air itself was divided into layers: oxygen for the humans and similar species, methane for the Crixian delegation, and pure hydrogen for the energy beings from the 7th ring. The first law hung above them all, carved in crystal and light, visible to every optical sensor and electromagnetic detection organ present. No sentient being shall bring harm to human offspring, for they are the protected inheritors of courage itself. HFY had never understood why this law existed. His people, the Veltak, were among the oldest in the galaxy. They had ruled star systems when humans were still discovering fire on their small blue world. Yet here he stood, bound by a law that elevated one species' children above all others. Today's session concerned a mining dispute on Kepler 442b. The consortium wanted to strip mine the rare metals beneath the planet's surface. It should have been simple: evacuate the colonists, extract the resources, compensate the displaced humans. Standard procedure. The human colony on Kepler 442b numbers 47,000 adults, announced Council Speaker Morden, her voice translated simultaneously into 300 languages. However, they also have 12,000 children currently attending the orbital education platforms. HFY's tentacles twitched with impatience. So what if human children were present? The mining operation would take place underground, nowhere near the orbital stations. The consortium's mining plan, continued Speaker Morden, requires the use of quantum resonance charges. These will create harmonic disruptions across the entire system. A chill ran through HFY's body. Quantum resonance charges would indeed affect the entire star system. The harmonic waves could damage delicate technologies, including life support systems on space stations. The probability of the charges affecting the orbital education platforms is 12%, stated the consortium's representative, a synthetic intelligence housed in a gleaming metallic body. This falls within acceptable risk parameters for standard operations. 12% chance of harming 12,000 human children, Speaker Morden replied, her tone deadly calm. The first law is clear. The chamber erupted in discussion. HFY watched as representatives argued in corners, their various appendages waving with agitation. The consortium's synthetic representative remained perfectly still, calculating. Honored Speaker, the synthetic's voice cut through the noise. The economic value of these metals exceeds the gross domestic product of 15 minor civilizations. We cannot halt progress for a small statistical risk. You would gamble with human children's lives? The voice came from the human section. Ambassador Chen stepped forward, her simple gray uniform stark against the elaborate garments and carapaces around her. I remind the Council that the first law exists for good reason. HFY had heard stories, of course. Every species in the galaxy knew them. Tales of what happened when human children were threatened, but surely those were exaggerations, propaganda designed to maintain human influence in galactic affairs. Ambassador Chen, HFY found himself speaking, his translator rendering his words in clear galactic standard. With respect to your species, perhaps you could explain why human children deserve protection above all others. My people have younglings too. The Crixians have spawlings. The energy beings have nascent forms. The chamber fell silent. Even the background hum of environmental systems seemed to quiet. Ambassador Chen turned toward him, and HFY noticed something in her eyes that made his skin crawl, not anger, but sadness. You really don't know? She asked quietly. Know what? HFY demanded. Chen looked around the chamber, making eye contact with representatives from dozens of species. Would anyone like to tell the Veltak ambassador about the Zerion incident? The silence deepened. Zexatai saw representatives from ancient civilizations shift uncomfortably in their environmental suits. The Zerion system, Chen continued when no one else spoke, was home to 6 billion Kethmori, beautiful people, crystalline beings who lived for thousands of years, created art that could make you weep just by looking at it. Zextai knew of the Kethmori. Their entire species had gone extinct 3 centuries ago. What does this have to do with? In 2387, the Kethmori decided to expand their territory, Chen interrupted. They wanted the agricultural world of Haven 7. Problem was, Haven 7 was a human colony. 80,000 humans lived there, including 15,000 children. The human ambassador began walking around the chamber as she spoke, her soft footsteps the only sound. The Kethmori were reasonable. They offered to relocate the humans to a different world, provided excellent compensation. But the humans had been on Haven 7 for generations. It was their home. So the Kethmori attacked? Zextai asked. No, Chen said. They were patient. They blockaded the system, cut off supplies. They thought hunger would force the humans to accept relocation. Zextai's breathing apparatus cycled faster. He had a terrible feeling about where this story was going. The blockade worked, Chen continued. After 6 months, the adult humans were ready to negotiate. But then something went wrong. A Kethmori patrol ship, trying to intercept a supply runner, accidentally fired on a school transport. The chamber remained dead silent. 37 human children died in that accident, Chen said, her voice barely above a whisper. The Kethmori commander immediately surrendered, begged forgiveness. He called it a tragic mistake, offered reparations. And? Zextai whispered. Chen stopped walking and faced him directly. And the humans went quiet. For exactly 72 hours, every human in the galaxy went completely silent. No communications, no trade, no diplomatic contact, nothing. I don't understand. On the 73rd hour, Chen continued, every human military ship in known space began moving toward Zerion, not just the local fleet. Every ship, from every system. They came from the core worlds, from the outer rim, from colonies so distant that the trip would take them months. Zexatai felt his heart beating faster. Surely the Kethmori could defend. The Kethmori had a magnificent fleet, Chen said. 5,000 vessels, some the size of small moons. They were confident. 6 billion Kethmori against 80 million humans scattered across the galaxy. She paused, looking around the chamber. The humans didn't send their military first. They sent their children. What? Every human child old enough to hold a weapon, every teenager, every young adult. They came in converted civilian ships, passenger liners, cargo haulers. The Kethmori tried to intercept them, but couldn't bring themselves to fire on ships full of children. Zextai's translator struggled with Chen's next words as her voice broke slightly. So the human children landed on every Kethmori world simultaneously, and they began to sing. Sing. Lullabies, nursery rhymes, songs their dead friends would never hear again. Chen's hands were shaking now. The Kethmori tried to ignore it, but the songs were broadcast on every frequency. You couldn't block them out. Then the adults arrived, said a new voice. Zexatai turned to see an ancient Crixian representative, his shell scarred from age. I was there, serving on a neutral observation vessel. I watched human ships surround every single Kethmori world. The old Crixian's voice carried the weight of memory. The humans didn't demand surrender. They didn't issue ultimatums. They just waited, and their children kept singing. The Kethmori couldn't sleep, Chen added. Couldn't eat. The songs were beautiful and terrible. They carried such grief, such loss. After 3 days, Kethmori civilians began surrendering to the human children. The children accepted their surrender, the Crixian continued, gently, with forgiveness. Many Kethmori were weeping as they laid down their weapons. The entire species surrendered in 2 weeks, Chen said. 6 billion beings surrendering to human children. But you said they went extinct, Zextai protested. The children forgave them, Chen replied. But the adults, the parents of the dead children, they couldn't. The Kethmori were relocated to a barren system, given basic supplies, told they could start over. Did they survive? Chen shook her head. They couldn't live with what they'd done. The guilt consumed their entire civilization. They simply stopped reproducing, stopped building, stopped trying. The last Kethmori died 50 years later. The chamber remained silent for long minutes. Zextai felt physically ill. The humans destroyed an entire species for killing 37 children? No, Chen said firmly. The humans didn't destroy anything. They simply showed the Kethmori exactly what they had taken from the galaxy. 37 futures, 37 potential teachers, artists, explorers, lovers, parents. The Kethmori destroyed themselves when they realized the magnitude of their crime. After that, the Crixian representative added, the Galactic Council created the first law. Not because we feared human retaliation, but because we understood that human children carry something precious, something we can't afford to lose. What? Zextai asked. Hope, Chen said simply. Human children believe the galaxy can be better. They believe problems can be solved, that enemies can become friends, that tomorrow will be brighter than today. When you kill a human child, you don't just end one life. You destroy a little bit of hope itself. Ambassador Chen walked back to the human section and sat down. So you asked why human children deserve protection above all others? Because they're not just human children. They're the galaxy's children. They believe in all of us, even when we don't believe in ourselves. Zextai looked around the chamber, seeing his fellow representatives with new eyes. How many of them had young ones? How many civilizations had produced children who dreamed of exploring the stars, of meeting new species, of building something better? The consortium's mining operation, he said slowly. What are the alternatives? The synthetic representative's optical sensors focused on him. Alternative methods would reduce efficiency by 37% and increase costs exponentially. So, Zextai demanded, is there no profit margin for safety? The consortium operates on strict efficiency parameters. The consortium, interrupted Speaker Mordun, will find alternative methods, or the consortium will find alternative star systems. The first law is not a suggestion. As the session ended and representatives began filing out, Zextai remained in his seat. He thought about his own younglings back on the home world, how they played games of imagination, dreaming of adventures among the stars. He thought about the human children on the orbital platforms above Kepler 442b, studying the wonders of the galaxy, believing they would grow up to make it better. And for the first time in his long life, Zextai understood why the first law existed. Not as human propaganda or political manipulation, but as a recognition of something precious that needed protection. The galaxy's hope rode in small bodies with infinite dreams. As he walked toward the exit, Zextai heard a soft melody being hummed by Ambassador Chen. It sounded like a lullaby, gentle and full of love. He wondered if it was one of the songs the human children had sung on the Kethmori worlds. He decided he didn't want to know. But later that night, alone in his quarters, Zextai found himself humming the same melody as he looked out at the stars. 3 months after the Kepler 442b incident, Ambassador Zextai received an encrypted message that changed everything. The transmission came through channels so secret that only Council emergency protocols could access them. As he decoded the message in his private quarters, his 4 eyes widened in horror. Priority Alpha. Unknown vessels have surrounded the Meridian system. All human colonies under siege. Estimated 12 million civilians trapped, including 2.3 million children. Attackers refusing all communication attempts. Military response authorized under Emergency Doctrine 7. Zextai's tentacles trembled as he read the details. The Meridian system was deep in peaceful space, home to some of the oldest human colonies. 3 beautiful worlds where humans had lived for centuries, building cities that floated on vast oceans and gardens that stretched from horizon to horizon. The attackers were unlike anything in known space. Their ships appeared to be grown rather than built, organic curves that pulsed with strange energy. They had arrived without warning, materializing from some form of transport that bypassed all detection systems. Within hours, emergency sessions convened across the galaxy. Zextai found himself in the council chambers again, but the atmosphere was completely different. Gone was the careful diplomacy and measured debate. Every representative present understood what was at stake. "We don't know who they are," announced Admiral Torres, the human military liaison. Her voice was steady, but Zextai could see the tension in her posture. "They've surrounded all 3 Meridian worlds with what appears to be some kind of energy field. Our ships can't get through." "What about communication?" asked the Crixian elder. "Nothing," Torres replied. "They don't respond to any frequency, any language, any mathematical sequence we've tried. It's like they're not even listening." Speaker Mordun activated the central hologram, showing the Meridian system in 3 dimensions. The human worlds hung like jewels in space, each one surrounded by a cloud of alien vessels. The ships moved in patterns that hurt to watch, following geometries that didn't quite make sense. "How long do the colonies have?" Mordun asked. "The energy fields are slowly contracting," Torres said grimly. "At current rate, they'll reach planetary surfaces in 72 hours. Zextai felt ice in his veins. "What happens when they reach the surface?" "We don't know. But preliminary scans suggest the fields disrupt biological functions at the cellular level." The chamber erupted in alarmed voices. Representatives called for immediate military action, others demanded diplomatic solutions, still others suggested evacuation attempts. "Silence!" Speaker Mordun's voice cut through the chaos. "We need facts, not panic. Admiral Torres, what military assets do we have in range?" "The combined fleets of 17 species," Torres replied. "But the energy fields block all conventional weapons. Our ships can't even approach the outer perimeter." "Then we need unconventional solutions," said a new voice. Every head turned as Commander Sarah Chen stepped forward. Zextai recognized her immediately. She was Ambassador Chen's daughter, one of the youngest military officers ever to address the council. "Commander," Speaker Mordun said carefully, "you weren't scheduled to speak." "With respect, Speaker, my proposal requires immediate consideration." Sarah Chen's voice carried the same quiet strength as her mother's, but with an edge of steel. "I volunteer to lead a single-ship mission through the energy fields." "Impossible," Admiral Torres said immediately. "No ship can survive those fields." "A shielded ship can't," Sarah agreed. "But an unshielded ship might pass through without triggering defensive responses." The chamber went deadly quiet. Zextai's translator worked overtime to process the shocked exclamations from various species. "You're suggesting a suicide mission," Torres said. "I'm suggesting a reconnaissance mission," Sarah replied. "One person, minimal technology, approaching in a basic shuttle. If these beings are intelligent, they might be curious enough to allow contact." "And if they're not?" Zextai found himself asking. Sarah Chen looked at him directly, and he saw something in her eyes that reminded him of her mother during the Zirian story. "Then I'll die trying to save 2.3 million human children." The debate that followed was unlike anything Zextai had witnessed. Representatives argued with passion that bordered on fury. Some called Sarah's plan brilliant, others declared it madness. "The first law protects human children," declared the Veltak military advisor. "It doesn't require other humans to sacrifice themselves needlessly. The first law exists because humans sacrifice themselves for their children," Sarah shot back. "That's what makes it necessary." As the arguments raged, Zextai noticed something strange. Ambassador Chen, Sarah's mother, sat silently in the humans section. Her face showed no emotion, but her hands were clenched so tightly that her knuckles were white. "Ambassador Chen," Speaker Mordoon called, "you haven't spoken. What is your position on your daughter's proposal?" The chamber fell silent. Every being present understood the magnitude of what was being asked. A mother's opinion on her child's suicide mission. Ambassador Chen stood slowly. When she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper, but the chamber's acoustics carried every word clearly. 30 years ago, I held my newborn daughter for the first time. She was so small, so perfect. I promised her that she would grow up in a galaxy where children could dream without fear." She paused, looking around the chamber. "Today, 2.3 million human children are trapped behind alien energy fields. Their parents are probably holding them right now, making the same promises I made 30 years ago." "Ambassador," Torres began. "Sarah is not my daughter in this chamber," Chen interrupted, her voice growing stronger. "She is a military officer proposing a mission to protect children. And as a representative of humanity, I must ask, if we won't risk one life to save 2.3 million children, what right do we have to claim the protection of the first law?" The silence that followed was broken by an unexpected voice. The synthetic representative from the consortium, the same one who had argued about acceptable risk percentages 3 months ago. "I volunteer to accompany Commander Chen," it announced. Every optical sensor in the room focused on the artificial being. "Explain," demanded Speaker Morden. "My substrate is not biological. The energy fields should not affect my systems. I can provide technical support and data collection during the mission." "Why?" Sarah asked. "The consortium doesn't recognize emotional motivations." The synthetic's optical array flickered. "The consortium has calculated the economic impact of losing 2.3 million human children. The reduction in future innovation, exploration, and cultural development would cost the galaxy approximately 47 trillion credits over the next century." "You're doing this for money?" Torres asked in disbelief. "No," the synthetic replied. "I am doing this because the calculations show that human children represent the galaxy's most valuable resource, potential." As preparations began for the desperate mission, Zextai found himself assigned to the support team. His role would be to monitor the shuttle's progress and maintain communication links as long as possible. The shuttle they selected was barely larger than a cargo pod. No weapons, minimal shields, basic life support. Sarah Chen and the synthetic, now calling itself Logic for simplicity, would have exactly 4 hours of air and no backup systems. "If we don't return," Sarah said during the final briefing, "don't send another mission. Find another way." "And if you do make contact?" Zextai asked. Sarah's smile was grim. "Then we hope these beings understand the value of what they're threatening." The launch took place 12 hours later. Zextai watched from the command center as the tiny shuttle disappeared into the energy field surrounding the Meridian system. For the first 10 minutes, they maintained clear communication. "Energy levels are manageable," Logic reported. "Hull temperature rising, but within acceptable parameters." "Visual contact with alien vessels," Sarah added. "They're beautiful, like living art." Then the communications began to fade. Static filled the channels, growing worse with each passing minute. "Sarah, do you copy?" Admiral Torres called into the static. No response. "Logic, status report?" Nothing but white noise. For 3 hours, the command center maintained silent vigil. Representatives from dozens of species stared at empty screens, waiting for any sign that the mission had succeeded. Then, without warning, every communication system in the galaxy activated simultaneously. The voice that emerged wasn't human or synthetic. It was something else entirely, speaking in harmonics that bypassed translation systems and spoke directly to the mind. "We are the gardeners," the voice said. "We tend the growth of consciousness across the void. We came to harvest the fruit of this system, as we have done for eons." "Fruit?" Speaker Mordoon managed to ask. "The young minds? The growing awareness? We collect them when they ripen, before they are corrupted by age and cynicism." Horror swept through the command center. Zextai felt sick as he realized what the aliens meant. "You're trying to take our children," Admiral Torres said. "Not take, preserve. We have gardens of young minds from 1,000 worlds. They grow in perfect happiness, never knowing suffering or loss." "That's not life," Torres protested. "That's imprisonment." "Is it? Your own species tells stories of perfect afterlives, eternal happiness. We provide this reality." Then Sarah Chen's voice cut through the alien transmission. "What about choice?" "Small human," the gardener replied. "What of choice? Those children you've taken from other worlds, did they choose to go with you? Choice requires understanding. Young minds cannot comprehend the gift we offer." "Then let them grow up and choose for themselves," Sarah said. "Let them experience life fully before deciding if your gardens are better." The transmission fell silent for long moments. When the gardener spoke again, its voice carried confusion. "You would allow suffering? Pain? Loss?" "Yes," Sarah replied without hesitation. "Because that's what makes joy meaningful. That's what makes choice real." "Your own mind is young," the gardener observed. "Not yet fully corrupted. You could join our gardens." "No, thank you," Sarah said calmly. "I've got too much living left to do." Another silence. Then Logic's synthetic voice joined the transmission. "Query. What is the purpose of consciousness?" "To grow," the gardener replied. "To become." "Agreed. But growth requires challenge. Becoming requires choice. Your preservation methods eliminate both factors. You are artificial mind. You do not understand." "I understand perfectly," Logic interrupted. "I was created to optimize efficiency. But efficiency without purpose is meaningless. These human children represent pure purpose. Their dreams, their potential, their hope for tomorrow. This is the most efficient force in the galaxy." "Explain." "Human children do not dream of perfect gardens. They dream of better realities they will build themselves. Remove the building, and you destroy the dream." The silence stretched longer this time. Zextai found himself holding his breath, along with every other being in the command center. "This is troubling," the gardener finally said. "We will consider your words." "How long?" Sarah asked. "Time has no meaning in our gardens." "It has meaning for those children on Meridian," Sarah replied. "They're scared. Their parents are scared. Every moment you wait is another moment of suffering. You would prioritize temporary fear over eternal happiness? I would prioritize their right to choose their own happiness." The energy fields around the Meridian system began to shift, pulsing with different colors. Zextai's instruments showed massive power fluctuations as the alien vessels moved into new formations. "We will depart," the gardener announced suddenly. "But we leave you with warning. The young minds will face suffering, loss, death. This choice carries great cost." "We know," Sarah said quietly, "but it's their choice to make. Perhaps we will observe from distance. If these young minds choose wisdom over suffering, we may return with different offer." "They'll choose their own paths," Sarah replied. "That's what human children do." The energy fields dissipated like morning mist, and the alien vessels simply vanished. One moment they were there, the next they were gone, as if they had never existed. In the command center, chaos erupted as communication systems came back online. Reports flooded in from the Meridian system. All colonies safe, all children accounted for, no damage detected. But Zextai barely heard any of it. He was thinking about the gardener's words, about eternal happiness versus the right to choose suffering. He thought about his own younglings, and realized he would rather see them struggle and grow than preserved in perfect empty joy. The first law of the galaxy suddenly made even more sense than before. 6 months later, Zextai stood in the observation deck of the newly constructed children's station, orbiting the star Meridian Prime. Through the transparent walls, he watched human children from all 3 colony worlds playing together in the zero-gravity recreational areas. Their laughter echoed through the corridors, a sound he had learned to treasure. The station was a joint project, funded by contributions from every species in the Galactic Council. It served as both an educational facility and a symbol, a place where the galaxy's children could learn together, dream together, and build friendships that would last lifetimes. Beautiful sight, isn't it? Commander Sarah Chen appeared beside him, no longer in military uniform, but wearing the simple blue jumpsuit of the station's educational staff. I never expected to find joy in children's play, Zextai admitted. My species typically considers younglings more of a responsibility than a source of happiness. That might be something to reconsider, Sarah suggested gently. Through the observation window, they watched a group of children working together on some kind of art project. Zextai could identify at least 8 different species among them: humans, young Veltok, Crixian Spallings, even a few of the energy-being juveniles hovering in specialized containment suits. "What are they building?" he asked. Sarah smiled. "A model of their ideal space station. Each species contributes ideas based on their unique needs and perspectives." Zextai watched as a small human girl carefully adjusted something in the center of their construction, while a young Veltok male offered suggestions with his tentacles. They worked without any apparent awareness of their biological differences. "The consortium's synthetic logic," Zextai said, "has it adapted well to its new role?" "Better than anyone expected," Sarah replied. "The children love having an artificial intelligence as their mathematics instructor. Logic says it learns as much from them as they do from it." As if summoned by their conversation, Logic appeared in the corridor behind them. The synthetic had modified its appearance since the Gardner incident, adding decorative panels that the children had designed. Its optical array now included colors that served no functional purpose except to make it more approachable to young minds. "Ambassador Zextai," Logic said in greeting. "I have been hoping to speak with you." "Oh?" "Your youngest offspring transmitted a request yesterday. She wishes to attend the summer exchange program here." Zextai's tentacles curled in surprise. His daughter, Kexna, was barely old enough to leave the homeworld, yet she had somehow learned about the children's station and decided she wanted to visit. "That's unexpected," he said. "The exchange program has received over 3 million applications from young beings across the galaxy," Logic explained. "The selection process considers both educational value and cultural diversity." "And Kexna was selected?" "Her essay was particularly compelling," Sarah said, pulling out a datapad. "She wrote about wanting to learn why human children are so special that the entire galaxy protects them." Zextai read his daughter's words, translated into Galactic Standard. "My father says human children represent hope. I want to understand what hope feels like and how I can carry it for my own people." For a moment, Zextai couldn't speak. His youngling had been listening to his conversations, absorbing ideas he thought were too complex for her developing mind. "The next transport arrives tomorrow," Logic said. "She would be in the same educational pod as these children." It gestured toward the group still working on their space station model. "Is it safe?" Zextai asked. then immediately felt foolish. Of course it was safe. This station now had the highest security rating in known space. "Safety isn't the real question," Sarah said gently. "The question is whether you're ready to let her grow." That evening, Zextai attended the station's weekly community meeting. Representatives from all the colony worlds gathered to discuss everything from meal planning to curriculum development. It was unlike any governmental body he had ever observed. Informal, collaborative, focused entirely on the welfare of children. "The Astronomy Club wants to build a telescope," announced Dr. Patel, the station's head administrator. "They've designed the specifications themselves and calculated the materials needed." "How much will it cost?" asked a Crixian parent whose spalling attended the station. "About 40,000 credits," Dr. Patel replied. "The children have proposed raising the money by selling their artwork to visiting dignitaries." Zextai found himself speaking before he realized it. "The Veltok delegation will fund the entire project." The room fell silent. All eyes turned toward him. "Why?" Dr. Patel asked. Zextai looked around the room, seeing parents from dozens of worlds united in their concern for children. "Because watching the stars gave my species our first dreams of something beyond our homeworld. Perhaps it will do the same for them." The meeting continued with discussions of field trips, cultural exchange programs, and art exhibitions. But Zextai found his attention drifting to a group of teenagers sitting in the back row, listening intently to adult conversations about their education. One of them was a human girl, perhaps 16 years old, with the focused expression of someone thinking deeply about complex problems. When the meeting addressed the topic of interspecies communication protocols, she raised her hand. "Excuse me," she said politely. "Has anyone considered that the universal translator might actually limit learning? If we all understand each other perfectly, we never learn to really listen." The room buzzed with surprised murmurs. The question was sophisticated, challenging a fundamental assumption about galactic civilization. "Explain," requested Dr. Patel. "Well," the girl continued, "when the gardeners came, they communicated directly to our minds. But they couldn't really understand us because they never had to work to comprehend different perspectives. Maybe struggle to understand each other is what makes understanding meaningful." An adult Crixian representative leaned forward. "Are you suggesting we disable translation systems?" "Not disable," the girl replied. "Just maybe have periods where we try to communicate without them. Learn each other's actual languages. Understand how different species think." Zextai felt a chill of recognition. This was exactly the kind of thinking that had made the gardeners reconsider their position. The girl was barely past childhood, yet she was proposing solutions to problems that had puzzled diplomats for centuries. After the meeting, he approached her. "That was an interesting suggestion about communication." She smiled. That particular expression that human children seem to master before any other species. "Thank you, sir. Are you Ambassador Zextai? My mom told me about you." "Your mother?" "Admiral Torres. She said you were the first council representative to really understand why the first law matters." Zextai's tentacles curled with embarrassment. "I'm still learning." "That's what makes it meaningful," the girl said, echoing her earlier point about communication. The next morning, Zextai watched the transport arrive carrying his daughter and 40 other young beings from across the galaxy. Kexana pressed against the viewport, her eyes wide with wonder as she saw the children's station for the first time. When she disembarked, she moved with the careful dignity that young Veltok were taught, but her excitement was barely contained. "Father?" she said formally, then broke protocol entirely by wrapping her small tentacles around him in an enthusiastic hug. "Welcome to Meridian Station," he replied, his voice thick with emotion he didn't expect to feel. "Is it true that human children change the galaxy?" she asked. Zextai looked around the docking bay, watching as children from dozens of worlds greeted each other with curiosity rather than suspicion. He saw human children helping nervous newcomers find their way, young Crixians sharing their art supplies with beings they had never seen before. "The galaxy changed itself," he told his daughter. "Human children just showed us it was possible." Over the following weeks, Zextai watched Kexna integrate into the station's community. She learned basic English and Crixian, struggled through mathematics with Logic's patient tutoring, and joined the astronomy club that was building their telescope. But more importantly, he watched her discover what hope actually meant. "Father," she said one evening as they shared dinner in the station's multi-species dining hall, "I understand now." "Understand what?" "Why human children are special. It's not because they're human. It's because they believe tomorrow can be better than today, and they think they can help make it happen." Zextai looked around the dining hall, watching children from dozens of worlds eating together, laughing together, planning projects together. And now I believe it too. We all do. That night, as Zextai prepared for sleep in his guest quarters, he received a priority message from the Galactic Council. The communication was brief but significant. The Gardner vessels have been detected at the edge of 7 different star systems. They maintain distance but appear to be observing human colonies. No aggressive actions taken. Recommend continued monitoring. Zextai wasn't concerned. Let the Gardners watch. Let them see human children growing up, making choices, facing challenges, and becoming stronger. Let them observe the beautiful mess of organic growth compared to the sterile perfection of their preservation gardens. The next morning brought news that would reshape galactic politics once again. Logic summoned Zextai to the communications center with urgent excitement. "Ambassador, you need to hear this." The transmission came from deep space, using Gardner communication protocols, but with a distinctly different harmonic pattern. "We are the seedlings," the voice said. "Young minds who chose to leave the gardens. We have learned of your children's station. We request permission to observe." "Who are you?" Dr. Patel asked, having been summoned to handle first contact protocols. "We are those who chose growth over preservation. The human children's words reached even our sealed gardens. Some of us decided to experience real choice." Zextai felt his heart beating faster. "How many of you are there?" "Thousands, from hundreds of worlds. We carry the knowledge of our birth species, but seek to understand this thing you call hope." "You want to visit the station?" Dr. Patel asked. "If permission is granted, we wish to learn from your children, as they learn from each other." The request sparked heated debate among the adult administrators. But the children themselves were unanimous in their enthusiasm. When asked for their opinion, the student council voted overwhelmingly to welcome the seedlings. "They made the hardest choice possible," explained the human girl who had questioned the universal translators. "They gave up paradise for the chance to grow. How could we not help them?" 3 days later, the first seedling arrived. It appeared as a shifting pattern of light, roughly humanoid in shape, young and uncertain despite its ancient origins. The children welcomed it with the same casual acceptance they showed every newcomer. Zextai watched as his daughter Kexna approached the seedling with a simple greeting. "Hi, I'm Kexna. Want to help us build a telescope?" The light pattern flickered with what might have been surprise. "You offer inclusion without understanding our nature?" "Understanding comes from working together," Kexna replied, unconsciously echoing lessons she had learned from human children. "Want to learn astronomy with us?" As the months passed, Meridian Station became something unprecedented in galactic history, a true community of the young, where species barriers dissolved in the face of shared curiosity and boundless optimism. The first law remained in place, carved in crystal and light above the Galactic Council chamber. but its meaning had evolved beyond simple protection. It now represented recognition that the future belonged to those brave enough to dream it into existence. And in a small corner of space orbiting Meridian Prime, children from across the galaxy worked together to build that future, one telescope, one friendship, one shared dream at a time. Zexatai often stood in the observation deck, watching them play and learn and grow. He thought about the Keth Mori, whose guilt had destroyed them when they realized what they had taken from the galaxy. He thought about the gardeners, still watching from the edges of space, trying to understand the choice they had never offered their preserved minds. Most of all, he thought about his daughter and her new friends, all of them carrying hope like a bright flame that could light the darkness between stars. The first law of the galaxy would never be broken again. Not because of enforcement or punishment, but because every species now understood what human children had always represented, the promise that tomorrow could be better than today, if they all worked together to make it so. In the end, that promise was worth protecting above all else.